If you're older and you spend a lot of time working out, you're going to have aches and pains. It comes with the territory. And you can't stop working out every time you're in a little bit of pain. You'd never work out. However, it's very important to learn to recognize when the pain is bad, when it indicates that you really need to stop. I recently broke a biceps tendon, snapped it in half. On the one hand, the break happened suddenly, and bizarrely, it happened while I was juggling. If you haven't already seen it, check out my video describing the event. But on the other hand, I had 5 or 6 months of clear warning signs that something very bad was going on in my shoulder. Signs that I chose to ignore, or that I didn't recognize as being signs of something genuinely bad. So in this video, I'm going to tell you exactly what I did to it, what the warning signs were, and how you might be able to avoid this kind of injury. Here's a very short version of what happened. In 2021, I had to stop working out entirely because of problems with my right shoulder. This one. I didn't work out at all except for physical therapy for about 6 months. I made a bunch of videos about that. At the beginning of 2022, I started working out again very cautiously. By June, last summer, I had gotten to the point where I could do 10 unweighted dips on rings, just going down to parallel. Then I decided to start doing deep dips, all the way down so that the front of my shoulders touched the rings. I started with 3 reps and I did them very carefully, but almost immediately I started having a sharp pain in the back of my left shoulder. Like I said, I started with only 3 reps, and over the next 3 weeks I worked up to 5 or 6 reps. And this was my first big mistake. During those 3 weeks my pain got worse and worse, but I didn't stop doing them. I had a very hard time accepting that a few deep dips could injure me, so I assumed that it couldn't be anything serious. But the pain got bad enough that I couldn't sleep on my left side at all, so I finally stopped doing dips entirely. That was about mid-July. I stopped doing dips, but I kept doing everything else. And for the next 2 months, my left shoulder still hurt, but it seemed like it was slowly getting better, so I thought I was on the right track. However, about 6 weeks later, something really bad happened. Before I tell you about it, I want to make the point that at the time that the bad thing happened, I was at an all-time strength peak in some ways. Now, I was still in the process of rehabbing my right shoulder, so I was still using relatively light weight with weighted pull-ups, for example. I had gotten up to 15 reps with 20 pounds. That may not sound impressive, but it's hard to do that many reps. And they were good reps, from a dead hang to well above the bar and with no kipping. Then I raised the weight to 25 pounds, and I was trying to build up to 15 reps with that. I had gotten to 12 reps, and that was already more reps than I had ever done with 25 pounds. I had also put on 3 or 4 pounds of muscle since the beginning of the year. I looked more muscular, I was strong on everything, and my right shoulder seemed almost completely recovered. Everything seemed like it was going great, except that I had this nagging pain in the back of my left shoulder. Then one day, near the end of August, while I was doing weighted pull-ups with 25 pounds, it felt like something slipped in my left shoulder. And after that first time, it happened on every rep. It was painful, but the worst part was that it was scary. Something felt wrong in there. It moved or shifted and kind of clicked. I don't know exactly how to describe it, but I'm going to say that my shoulder started shifting. And it was worse if I did pull-ups with this grip. With those, nothing happened on the way up, but on the way down, my shoulder popped sharply. It shifted painfully on every rep. And much to my surprise, neutral grip pull-ups on rings were even worse. The only way I could do any kind of pull-ups without my shoulders shifting was to do them unweighted and with this grip. But even then, it was dicey. My shoulder would shift sometimes, and it always felt scary, like it was on the verge of shifting on every rep. I also did a lot of rows, which felt safer, but even they would sometimes cause my shoulder to shift. Most pushing exercises made my shoulder ache, but generally didn't cause the shifting. I kept working out for about 3 more months, during which time my shoulder stayed about the same or possibly got worse. Finally, in mid-November, I stopped entirely because I was starting to get scared that something was really wrong. I started juggling again because, I have a hard time sitting still, and I need to have something physical that I can work on. And because I thought it would be therapeutic. I thought, low intensity, high reps, it should stimulate blood flow in my shoulder and all that. Then, on December 3rd, I made the unfortunate decision to try some club juggling, and the long head biceps tendon in my left arm snapped. That's what happened in a nutshell. But why did it happen? Well, I'm convinced that the single biggest factor is age. This isn't the first problem that I've had. I've been plagued with shoulder problems for the last 3 years. Actually, since right before I started my channel. And I have trained very hard since then, but I have no doubt that if I had done exactly the same things 10 years ago, that I wouldn't have any problems at all. I've been doing this stuff hard for over 15 years. Why did the problem start recently? I think I just reached an age where my tendons couldn't recover quickly enough to keep up with the constant stress that they're under. And I did not adapt my training to my new reality. I'm simply not able to train hard on planges, front levers, back levers, one-arm handstands, handstand on rings, handstand push-ups, muscle-ups, and heavy-weighted pull-ups all at the same time, like I used to be able to. I need a lot more recovery time than I used to. But also, this injury was entirely preventable. This did not have to happen to me. I brought it on myself by not paying attention to the warning signs. And after thinking carefully about what happened and going over my workout notes, this is what I think. This is my advice, and this is what I hope people will take away from this video. The first thing, if you suddenly experience a brand new sharp pain, you need to stop what you're doing immediately. Don't keep doing it for a few more workouts to see if it'll get better on its own, especially if that new pain coincides with the introduction of a new exercise into your workout. I should have stopped as soon as the deep dip started hurting me. It did not feel like normal soreness. It felt like bad pain. Like I said, I just couldn't believe that a few deep dips could injure me, and it took me a long time to even consider the possibility that the pain I felt could be serious. But it was serious. Don't doubt that some seemingly small thing could be serious. And just generally, don't do anything that causes sharp pain. And the second thing, and you'd think that this would go without saying, but clearly I needed someone to sit me down and explain this to me. If something is shifting in your shoulder on every rep of every pulling exercise, that's a very bad sign. The long head of the biceps tendon passes over the head of the humerus where it sits in a groove. If it gets damaged or stretched, it can slip in and out of that groove, which frays the tendon and breaks it down quickly. That slipping in and out was almost certainly what caused the sensation that something was shifting in my shoulder, even though the sensation of shifting and the pain mostly came from the back of my shoulder. If that starts to happen to you, you should immediately stop, and you should probably go to a doctor and get it checked out. Okay, those are the main things. If you've made it this far into the video, I applaud your commitment. Feel free to click off at any time, but I'm going to take just a couple more minutes to go into a little more detail about what's going on in my shoulder. In addition to my biceps tendon, my surgeon said he would fix whatever else was wrong in my shoulder, and when he got in there, he discovered that the subscapularis tendon was severely damaged near the insertion point. The subscapularis is part of the rotator cuff. It's on the front of the shoulder, and it's the muscle that's most responsible for internal rotation of the shoulder. And I'm not a doctor, but looking at diagrams of it, the subscapularis tendon seems to be in very close contact with the biceps tendon. So I think it's no coincidence that they both were damaged. Now, if you think about deep dips, it does seem like both the biceps and the subscapularis would be stretched like crazy at the bottom. Probably what happened was that the subscapularis tendon started to tear during the deep dips. Later on, the torn subscapularis would have made it easier for the biceps tendon to start slipping out of its groove. And once it started slipping in and out, it got frayed and damaged to the point where it was just ready to break. Based on my studies at the University of Google, that's the most likely sequence of events. Of course, it also seems possible that the biceps tendon got damaged first, started slipping in and out of the groove, and that damaged the subscapularis tendon. Of course, I'll never know, but I can't help wondering about it. Maybe if I understood it better, it would help me avoid this kind of thing in the future. But here is what I would really like to know. If I had known what was wrong with me right before I snapped the tendon, like if I had peered into the future and watched this video the day before the juggling incident, could I have done anything about it? Meaning, I picture my biceps tendon being stretched and frayed so that there wasn't much thickness left. It was sliding in and out of the groove easily, and my subscapularis tendon was also severely damaged. My question is, would it have been possible to rehab that level of damage? I know that tendons can regenerate to an extent, but if they're so stretched that they're now loose and they can't really hold the joint together tightly anymore, is it possible for them to become tight again? Not just thicker and stronger, but also shorter and tighter. Or was surgery already the only option at that point? Maybe I'm better off having actually snapped it so that the need for surgery was clear. Anyway, let me know in the comments if you have any insight into that. I would really like to know. And thanks a lot for watching. I know I haven't exactly been a good example, but I hope I can at least be a good cautionary tale. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe for more content like this, and I will attempt to set a better example in the future.